All right, good evening, everyone. It is March 9th, and we are going to get our committee meeting started. One note that we do have, in addition to tonight's agenda, an update on the community grant program, which will be our second item on the agenda. But up first, we are going to talk through I think we have a presentation or questions from Mr. Fisher around the annexation. So that is our first item up. Thank you. No problem.
David Fisher. I have my partner, Tim Spencer, here with me tonight. First of all, I want to thank you for allowing us a little bit more time to come in and meet with the committee of the whole. I was out of town at the last meeting, and I just felt it was important that I personally be here and talk this thing through with you before it goes to a final vote on the annexation. I'm David Fisher. Been a Gahanna resident for, I don't know, like 33 years now or something like that. Live over on Cherry Bottom Road. I'm a lawyer, but also do a little bit of real estate development. And I kind of get it, that the old biblical saying about a prophet has no honor in his own land, but here I am in the Gahanna, the city I live in and love, asking you to consider something that I think could be a very exciting project for the city of Gahanna. I think, unless somebody can correct me, I think I'm the only developer that comes before you that lives here, pays taxes here, and has the love for Gahanna that my wife and I do over a long period of time. I think that the stuff that we've done in the past that I've been involved in, including the old FOP site over on 62 in Cherry Bottom, was a hard-fought fight. It took a long time. I had a lot of wounds from that, a couple of lawsuits, a couple of threats that my license as a lawyer was going to be removed, but I knew that if we stuck with it and did the right thing, we could have the community park we have there now, which I'm hoping everybody's going over there because it's pretty awesome. My wife and I go over there all the time, and it connects so much of Gahanna, and I can't believe how many people I now see walking the paths over there past my house and down in there every day. It's really, really a community amenity that is really fabulous, and I'm very proud that I stuck with it and took the wounds I did to get that done. So anyway, Jim and Darlene Tony have been friends of mine for years, and we've talked about when they got ready to retire and what they could do with their property, and I offered to help them at that point in time. And so we did enter into a contract now a couple of years ago as we worked through this process. By the way, I think a couple of years ago shows you how deliberative we are about this, not trying to rush anything through the city with you or the residents or anybody else. It's currently in Jefferson Township. We worked through a pre-annexation agreement with the city months ago. The annexation was approved by the county commissioners, is now up to you for consideration. It's, I think, up for a second and perhaps final reading and vote next week, I believe, next Monday night. Under the pre-annexation agreement, we could have rushed to get a zoning done at the same time in terms of what was going to go there, but after some discussion among our team and with some residents, we thought, let's not rush that. Let's make sure we get the right input. Let's make sure we do the right thing along the way so that at the end of the day, we, you, and the citizens of Gahanna can be very proud of what we put there. We're putting a project there that is going to be something that we can be proud of. We're not building it to sell it. We're building it to own it as a long-term legacy product. And I've told my partners, I live here, and I want something that I can drive by every day in Gahanna and be proud of, just like I'm proud of other things in Gahanna that are getting done. So we want to work with you, not just try to push some project in front of you and through you. If you see fit to pass the annexation next week, I hope you do. I hope we can garner your support in that regard. We'll continue to work with your planning staff and with neighbors and with others throughout the city of Gahanna, as we've done before on other projects and other incentives, to come up with something that we know will never please, you never please everybody, right? I mean, and a lot of people just don't like change. We know we're not going to please everybody, but we think by the time we're done, we hope we please the majority of citizens. We hope we please Planning Commission. We hope we please you with something we end up with. Like I say, it's something we want to be proud of, something my family and I can drive by each day and say, look at this, isn't this cool? We just were talking today about we'd be willing to, for example, put a sign there as another gateway to Gahanna, like you have over by the UDF. When people are coming in, they know that you're coming to Gahanna. A lot of traffic comes through that area. A lot of people, I think, that will want to stop, and if we put a restaurant there, for example, eat there like they do at the barn next door. Yes, we want to do a mixed-use project with some retail in it, not a lot, probably a restaurant, maybe a workout facility, maybe a medical facility, things like that, not high intense uses. And then we do want to put some apartment dwellings in there that will do in a way that is sustainable, good looking, stands the test of time. I think you know there's a big pond in the back that we can't do anything with. I know some of you would like to see us amenitize and do something with that, and we're going to work with you to accomplish that and work with the neighbors as well. We're excited about this, and we're excited to work with you, and we're not going to rush anything here. The pre-annexation agreement is in place. We hope we can count on your votes next week to move that forward, and we hope that we can work with you and the Planning Commission and the citizens in the months to come to arrange for a development plan and a zoning that we can all be proud of. I think that I personally feel it's important to the city of Gahanna to control that lot, that area, as opposed to it staying in the township and whatever would happen there. But at the same time, we understand that people have concerns. We understand that people want to make sure their voices are heard, and we want to listen and work with them. So I appreciate your time tonight to give us the time to talk about this. We'd appreciate it if you give due consideration and if you see fit to vote in favor of this annexation next week. Happy to answer questions if anybody may have any. So.
Excellent. Thank you, Mr. Fisher. Do we have questions or discussion? Yeah, Mr. Weaver.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Mr. Fisher, and thank you, Mr. Spencer, for joining us this evening. I just want to reiterate my thanks to you for meeting with the neighbors in the back on the Creekway Court neighborhoods. I was already last summer, but appreciate your time and your willingness to listen to them and hear their concerns. The one concern that they had one of the concerns that they had that it does involve the large pond and concerns about what that amenitization might look like of the pond. I think at first blush to me, it was, trail around it. Well, yeah, of course, it sounds great. I think that raised a lot of concern from them given the condition of the surrounding land to the pond. And so whatever happens next week, if you are to move forward, I would encourage you to continue to be in contact with those neighboring property owners. The second thing, and I think I say this every sort of annexation or rezoning, there's a process that we as council and as a city follow. So if the annexation were to go through, my understanding that what would come next is the rezoning application, and there'd be more opportunities for discussion and public comment with that as well, and still more steps to come after that. So just one step in the process. And I think that will be it for me this evening, Madam Chair.
I may respond, Madam Chair. I think there were three issues. One was the kind of overarching change. We don't want all this here. Second was the pond. And third was traffic. Those were the three that I recall.
That's correct.
And with respect to the pond, trust me, Mr. and Mrs. Tony wished that his father had never dug that pond, but he did, and it's now a wetland. So we can work around it, but we can't fill it in. We can't do anything with it. I think there's been some discussion with some folks at the city level that they'd like to see it amenitized and have something that can be more of a community amenity, and we're happy to do that, at the same time respecting the concerns of those neighbors on the other side of the creek. With respect to the use, let's all look at what's there now. And I think anything we do is going to improve on that. You've heard me say what my personal commitment is to the city of Gahanna in terms of the quality and the kind of product I want to put there. And then lastly, with respect to traffic, traffic is always, every time I do this, anywhere, anytime, traffic is always the issue. And I would submit to you that no matter what we put there, the traffic that comes down Route 62 through that roundabout from New Albany is not going to stop. It's only going to increase. And I think with good planning and good entrance and exits, we can add to that traffic, but in a responsible way that does not detract from the quality of life or from traffic moving through those areas.
thank you. Any additional questions or discussion? All right, thank you again.
Thank you very much.
For being here.
See you next week.
We
Appreciate it.
appreciate it. Thank you. All right, our next item is our added item, our community grant update, and I believe I'm turning that over to Mr. Weibensinger. We're fine.
Difficulties here. I closed out. I have to find it now. Give me 1 second.
Should be music.
How many weeks left with this technology?
This is user error here, sure.
Ouch.
See if I can do it this way here.
We'll have music in the new building.
Yeah, right. Hold music.
Either that or Kevin will sing.
You know, Kevin wants to jump up here and take over, but I'm not. You want to start talking? No, I got you here. Okay. Okay. So I am back again this year. This will be our 4th year in a row now with our community grant program. What I wanted to catch up is just kind of do a quick overview of where we are, kind of program to date since 23, and then talk about the 26 program that we're getting ready to launch. Next Monday is the intended date for that as well. So let me here. So far, we have done 4 rounds of funding over 3 years. If you recall, 23 and 24, those were with the ARPA, or America Rescue Plan Act funds. And then in 25, we transitioned to local funding here. 25, we did do 2 rounds. In the initial first round, the grant review committee did not allocate the full $100,000 in the budget. They allocated $81,250, which gave us roughly around the $18,000 remaining that we ultimately ended up doing a round 2 when we had some food insecurities kind of bubble up towards the end of last year. I think I was here in October presenting that round 2. And again, we do have that the 4th round, or the 4th year that we're doing it. The 5th round is projected to go live would be on the 16th, which would be next week. So far, through the life of the project or the program, we have funded 43 separate funding programs or projects amongst 25 individual or separate nonprofits that funding has been distributed to. So for 26, not a lot of big changes. We really worked through a lot of those big changes when we transitioned from federal funding to local. If you recall, we went through a lot of iterations of that last year. We are fine-tuning as we are learning what works for the program and what we need to modify to make sure it works for our nonprofits. We are expanding our guidelines, making it, again, more clear as to how to apply, how to fill out your application appropriately to ensure that we do get the best applications, best projects, best programs that we can with the funding. This year, we will be holding a voluntary information session, or we'll call it like a webinar, that anybody can link into and ask questions about the application, the program, the process. What we want to, again, continue to try to do is to help. Some of it is coming down to educating some of our smaller nonprofits on how to apply for grant funding. Some of that is a new concept, and with the addition of our grants analyst last year, we've been really able to help expand and help some of these nonprofits understand how to work towards self-sustainability in certain programs as well. We are going to look at modifying the eligibility review. It has been a bit cumbersome to ask, again, 4 residents and a city employee to come to City Hall and sit and review all the eligibility requirements of the application and then go through the project itself. So we will, as a DAS team, we will be doing the initial eligibility review. So when the grant review committee meets, they'll know what we've determined eligible, ineligible, and why. And then we can answer any questions that they have. But that should be better use of that committee's time, is to really focus on the applications and the projects themselves. And again, we are leveraging our OpenGov software. You may be familiar with that. We've used it the last few years here for the application submission module, so they can do it online. We are leveraging some more capabilities with that for some automatic reporting, some reminders to the applicant, easier for them to upload documents. We're working towards that. That's the same software that we've won recognition for our permitting process as well. So we're leveraging that in a different aspect. Program priorities are going to remain the same. Again, we have 1A, 1B, which we focus on is human necessity, including food and clothing insecurities. B would be, we are focused on the mental health and counseling services. 2 is our general safety, health, welfare, which we found has been, transportation assistance, housing assistance, utility assistance as well. And then the third one is just general improvement of the Gahanna community. They will remain a reimbursable grant up to $10,000. We found that has helped put projects and programs into a achievable perspective for some of the nonprofits that might be a little more ambitious than what they can actually execute in the time frame of the funding. So we found that $10,000 still seems to be a very solid threshold to ensure good programming and equitable distribution amongst our nonprofits. And again, just running through the process for you all, but those at home know as well. We are going to do that initial eligibility review. What we are looking for, again, we've tried to make this as simple as we can for nonprofits, but still reinforcing our compliance piece. We do need them to make sure that they do submit that they are IRS registered nonprofit located within the Gahanna community. We do define the Gahanna community is the city of Gahanna and the Gahanna Jefferson Public School District as well. The population that is being served with the program or the project needs to benefit a minimum of 51% of the Gahanna community. It is not designed to support things that are occurring outside of that area. If the applicant has received an award in the past, we do look at that to ensure that that award is closed. We want them to be complete with the project before we continue to award more money to them, because we want to ensure there's compliance on that piece. And that all documentation has been submitted. This has been one of the hiccups that we want to continue to work with the nonprofits, is we do need all the documents. They are there for a reason, because we do need to ensure that they are compliant with it, and that we can vet the program and the nonprofit the best that we can. And following that initial eligibility review, all applications are reviewed by the Grant Review Committee. As you may recall, the Grant Review Committee is made up of 2 council appointees, which you all did in January, I think is when that was passed, 2 mayoral appointees, and then 1 city staff member. That city staff member has typically, or has been so far, somebody from our economic development team. They tend to have a good pulse on the community. And so we find value in their perspective on the applications. The Grant Review Committee evaluates the applications based upon the priorities, guidelines, and requirements. They then make recommendations to whether to award a full award, a partial award, or do a non-award. A lot of that is dependent upon what is in the application, what makes sense. We do full awards, we do non-awards, we do a lot of partial awards because some of the things that are in the program may not be something that we want to, or that the committee does not want to devote money towards or funding towards. It just depends on individual applications and what is in that piece. We do confirm with the nonprofit, though, if we do a partial award, that they can complete the components that are going to be funded. Because what we don't want to do, again, is award money and then have it returned. We want to have impactful programming and projects within the community. And then DAS, we administer the process. Again, myself and Sean, who is our grants analyst, we are not voting members of the committee. What we do is we facilitate the process to make sure that that grant review committee has everything that they need to make informed decisions and recommendation. So the timeline we're looking for this year, again, March 16th is when we want to send out our notice of funding opportunities. Similar to what we did last year, we've compiled quite a list of nonprofits in our local community. All of those that have contacted us at least once over the last 4 years are already on that list. We do acquire various potential nonprofits that could be potential grant recipients throughout the year that are also added to that initial notice of funding opportunity. Again, we do have the application portal. We do post it on social media, and we've always put it in the newsletter as well to try to get that out there. We found the biggest piece that has been successful has been the direct emailing and or when we are in the community pushing that out to people that may or may not know or may not follow any of our communication methods for this. March 24th is when we have that virtual information session. Again, dependent on the feedback from that, we do have the ability to host another one. We will have enough time frame from the launch to application due date. If we do find a desire or need, we can do a second information session. April 6th is when we will be sending out another like a reminder, reminding people that the applications are due. We do find this does trigger those last minute people that say, oh yeah, I forgot about it, and then we do get a little bit of push at the end there. The plan is all applications due April 13th. That is when the portal closes, and we cannot take any more applications. We will accept applications in paper form or email form if that's what the nonprofit has. Last year, we didn't have one that needed that option, but we will accept that option. We will just internally put it into the system for them. The preference is for them to go through OpenGov because then they can check the status themselves and do not have to contact us. Notices of award to be issued around April 23rd is the plan. We did reinforce this with additional reporting requirements. This is the same as last year. We do have 2 update reports and check-ins throughout the grant program. We've found that if we don't remind them and require them to have updates, a lot of our small nonprofits, they get very busy with real life. And so this has actually helped them stay focused. We've gotten actually a lot of kudos for reminding them and requiring them to at least provide us updates so we can ensure that the program and the project is moving forward. A final report is due at the completion of the program. We have found that the projects all vary, so what we would consider the final reports look different from others. We're trying to standardize that, but again, there's a lot of variables between what is being asked. So what we do ask for is a recap or summary report. If they can provide us any data, any head counts, how many residents impacted, how many people attended their event, we do seek for that information as much as they can provide. Again, some of the smaller nonprofits, that's a piece that we continue to work with them is to make sure that we can see the impact of the funding. And then again, it is a reimbursement request. And once all expenses are incurred, they do send us copies of all of their expenses, which we then validate to be in compliance with what was awarded. We ensure that they're not trying to submit for reimbursement of taxes or anything that is not allowable. And then we do issue that reimbursement check to them. Typically has been within 2 weeks. We do tell them within 30 days. It just depends on how they turn in their paperwork sometimes, because sometimes it's very organized and sometimes we have to assist a little bit with that. So I do have a picture up here. I just wanted to, this is a Creative Options where we did do the adaptive beehive under the 25 program. They did work with Peace Lutheran Church, so you do have a collaboration of Creative Options and Peace Lutheran Church. That adaptive beehive was delivered in the fall. A little too cold to be doing beehives and starting. So tentatively, I don't want to put them on the spot, but I will say tentatively, they are looking at a ribbon cutting on June 6th for that, to be able to introduce that to the community. The vendor, it is especially designed for those with different abilities and mobility needs, that the vendor, before handing it over to us, did take it through some of their trade shows and things to really show others what the creative thing that we're trying to do here in Gahanna. And that ties perfectly to some of our sustainability initiatives that we continue to push and our bee pollinator designation as well. So it kind of ties a bunch of that together. So I will stop talking and allow you all to ask questions.
Excellent. Thank you very much, Mr. Weibensinger. Any questions or discussion? Yeah.
On the deadline, on the 13th, April 13th, is there a time? I mean, is it like 4 o'clock, midnight?
Yeah, so that'll be on the application itself.
Okay.
We have everything. It's typically close the business
Okay.
because we have to manually basically close the portal.
Okay,
Yeah.
thanks.
Others? Okay, Mr. Weaver first.
All right, thank you. Thank you, Chair. Just a quick clarifying question. I think it was alluded to a couple slides later, but when DAS does the preliminary eligibility review, it sounds like they will screen out those non-compliant applications, or are they just noting that for the committee that, hey, application A and application D did not hit these criteria,
Yeah,
but
so-
here's the applications?
Yeah, so the grant review committee will have access to all applications that are submitted. There will be we will basically, it's a shared folder because I'm sharing it with numerous people on the committee that we will have in there that are deemed eligible and non-eligible. So they will be able to see who is in there. They can go through and they can also, if they want to confirm with it, a lot of that is flushed out during their conversations as well as whether they agree or disagree with the eligibility determination. That is typically not a main thing for determining. Most everybody is meeting our eligibility requirements because we haven't made them vast or broad. We've made it pretty core functions. There's just been maybe one or two, I think, each round that has not been able to build a program or a project that meets the eligibility.
Okay, thank you for that. And then just to clarify that it would be a separate individual who serves on the committee itself representing the city versus the individuals who do the preliminary review.
Yes, yep.
Thank
It's
you.
a non-DAS team member is the city-appointed one.
Thank you very much. Appreciate that. That's it for me. Thank you.
Ms. Padova?
Thank you. I'm not sure if you said this, but what is the process for the committee? They're going through the applications, but there's an interview process as well with
There can
them,
be.
right?
So
Okay.
the committee has the ability to meet as many times as they would like. We do put in the application packet that we do reserve, the committee reserves the right to ask for the applicant to come in person and/or whether we do it electronically or some, whatever virtual form, to make sure that all their clarifying questions are met. We did have 2 last year that the committee felt they needed just some clarifying information before they can make a determination. So they did activate that last year, yep.
Okay, so it's not like a first round is reading the packets, and then the second round is like interviewing. It's just interviewing if they have
If they have
specific
additional
questions, if
Some
something
of,
wasn't
some of the
clear.
packets are clear, and it would be a waste of people's time to come
Yeah.
in to do around that. There's nothing that's needed for, yeah.
Okay, thank you. I just wanted to make sure that I understood that correctly. But aside from that, thank you for giving us this information, letting us know what's going on. Would you be able to send us, because I believe we got the information for the first round of last year, but I don't remember seeing anything for the second round. Would you be able to send us like a list of the complete
Yeah, of course,
organizations that
yeah.
received
I'm not sure if
funding
it
for last year?
came in October or not. I'd have to look at, but yeah.
Okay.
We can send it again.
Okay, thank you. Thank you so much for your work on this. I appreciate it.
Yeah, and one piece before I forget, still the plan is, like I did last year, is come back around June to give an update as to where we landed in the process.
Ms. Bowers, did you have something as well?
Yeah, thank you. Thank you, Director Weibensinger, for briefing us on sort of how we've gotten here and for the changes that you're implementing. I think this is fantastic as a starting point to get the information out into the community, certainly by having a discussion here in committee. One piggyback question, perhaps on Mr. Weaver's question, is there an opportunity for correction if there's a problem with the application? Will you engage with an applicant after the portal closes if they can correct a missed response or?
Yeah, I mean, the
an
intent
unfair
is
response?
to get good applications, and if it's something that we can work with the applicant, we have gotten with them to say, we've implemented last year, which we will require everyone this year, some of their documentation. If you turned it in last year and nothing's changed, you need to turn it again this year. Some of them took that as I don't have to do it things, and we did have to reach out with them to make sure that they do provide so we can get strong applications. Yeah, and we're willing to work with them. They need to contact us as well. The goal really is to get as many good applications prior to the grant review committee having time to review them. We do close the portal. We would like to keep that deadline, but if they've made it in time and it is potentially something that is obviously clerical as well, we want to make sure that we give them an opportunity to address those.
And I guess one other question, thinking about implementation of the strategic plan and how the strategic plan is informing allocations and decision-making. Have you identified some of the provisions or sections in the strategic plan that align to us continuing the community grant program? And if you want to come, you can certainly circulate that by email if you don't have that.
No, it's fine. I believe the programs that are the outputs of this are scattered throughout the strategic plan. If you look at some of the projects and programs that are being funded, do fall within a lot of the sections of the strategic plan itself. It just depends on what project do we want to discuss, and we can, there's a high probability we can tie it to something, especially if we're talking along the sustainability. A lot of the gardening that we're doing here and a lot of those programming tie directly to some of the verbiage within that, and building stronger neighborhoods and things like that. A lot of what we're doing weaves intricately into some of those initiatives in there.
Excellent. And I think you really addressed this too in your response, that a lot of the funded programs are hitting a lot of these values and interconnected points like sustainability and food security, or youth safety and mental health, or, and infrastructure. So I think that's fantastic. So thank you so much.
Sure.
Excellent. I do have a couple of questions, but first wanted to say I super appreciate the pre-info session and support. Having experience with nonprofit, a small nonprofit that often lacks resources, time, expertise, you all are not only offering that financial support, but like an educational support that these small nonprofits that can then use and go apply for bigger grants. So super kudos to you on that. Related to that, so the report that comes after, you've mentioned that often it's in different forms, and I know the team has enough on your plate, but ever consider a even info or help on what that after report looks like, just in that vein of even a template that they can then take that experience to apply for others, if they have an idea of like what a good report out looks like.
Yeah, and so, don't mean to cut you off, but so this last year, we're working on a template that we could try to, our best to make it a one-size-fits-all. Over the first few years, we kind of said, send us what works for you, because we don't want to give you an extra form to fill out or an extra task to do if you already have something that works for us. We are refining that. We do have something that is in the works that we, will hope to address what we would say a canned final report without causing too much burden on some of the nonprofits. But a lot of it is we do sit with them when they sign their grant agreement. We do make them sign a grant agreement to hold them accountable for it. But we do sit and talk about the resources available, the opportunity that all they need to do is reach out to grants, community grants at Gahanna.gov, community grant program at Gahanna.gov. And somebody can reach back out if they have a question or clarification on anything. Like we're here to assist, and ultimately we want good programs that fall within the compliance of the process.
Excellent. Yeah, thank you for that. And then the other question is just a reminder for me. So it's reimbursement. I fill out my application, and then you give money back. Remind me, has it always been that way, or was there a switch when it started out, right?
Yeah,
It was,
so when we
okay.
transitioned from federal to local, we transitioned from advance payment to
Okay.
reimbursement basis. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. I just needed that refresher. All right, any other, yeah, Mr. Renner?
Yeah, thank you. Corey, I was sitting here and listening to your presentation, and I just want to really say, for the record, I think my colleagues have actually already articulated this, but well done, sir. Being here, as somebody who is here for the creation of this and through the years, you have really done a masterful job of really maturing this in a thoughtful way by putting some other, incorporating some programs and by incorporating your detailed process. As stewards of taxpayer dollars, I commend you for really coming up with a very thoughtful and grounded process to distribute these funds. So,
Not
thank
just
you.
me, we have a team working on it, but yes.
Yeah, I understand that, but you're the leader, so thank you.
Thank you. I don't think we have further questions or discussion. I appreciate the update and the good work to everyone, so thank you. All right, our next item is items from public safety. Chief Spence, welcome.
Good evening. Pretty straightforward this evening. This is the 26-27 SRO agreement with Gahanna Jefferson Schools. We worked with the city attorney and then also the school administration with Gahanna Jefferson and their legal counsel. Just a little bit of cleanup language. The most significant change before you in this agreement is a change in the cost share model that we previously had, which was a 75% cost of one SRO and 50% of another, working with the district. That we've changed that to a 50, 50, and 50 cost share model of three. What would normally move if we were under the old model would move at about $6,500 for the upcoming school year, but this actually increases that share of to $48,735.32 for the cost across all three. We did do a little bit of research, kind of looking at school district cost share models outside of Franklin County, just trying to see where they landed in percentages, and 50% seemed to be the kind of the midpoint, equal and in common practice in other jurisdictions. So that's what our ask. This has been passed by the board, and this would be in effect for the upcoming school year. We did work with the city attorney also on our MOU with the district that's already in place. That really is just the operational side of the SRO program with the public schools.
Excellent, thank you. Any questions or discussion?
I guess, thank you. While I appreciate, and certainly it's not lost on me comparison to other communities in terms of a cost share model and level setting and benchmarking to sort of how we're operating compared to those other areas, other jurisdictions. What is the impetus for us addressing a cost share change now?
Well, that was we are adding another SRO to the team that was approved in the 26 budget. We had approached the district in the past over adjustments as we deployed more officers. We dedicated entirely with city resources, a school resource officer to the middle schools. So we've continually added to that staffing model and made adjustments to address the expanding district, and adding that SRO, which will be in place for the 26-27 school year, that will be dedicated to Gahanna Lincoln High School.
I apologize, Chief, but just to make sure I understand, so it's really the consideration of expanded staffing resources and trying to sort of balance out the cost share based on the extension of additional resources?
Yes.
Okay. And it's already, I note that it's already been approved by the Board of Education. Anything from, I guess, the liaison's perspective? Would be curious to hear.
No, that it was approved without, much question or discussion. I believe their last regular meeting, of getting my dates mixed up, but their last regular meeting. So no concerns from them. And the 48,000-ish increase is because of the extra.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
changing that cost share model from 2 to 3, and then setting it at 50% across the board for all 3.
Okay. And going to the 3 at the high school
Yes.
next school year.
Next school year. This is for the 26-27. Now, our intent is to, because there is a degree of training that's stipulated in Ohio Revised Code, that we'll have that position posted within Deputy Chief Moffitt's subdivisions. We'll get that posted, get that training done so that they start into the school year completely trained with all of the background that's needed to be in that role. Now, we do make some adjustments in staffing based on operational needs. We might slide somebody to the high school. We'll have people at the middle school. We have one dedicated to the 3 middle schools, and then, of course, we're in the elementaries as well.
Okay. Yeah, go ahead.
Unless you wanted to.
Well, I was just going to add a follow-up, and I don't know what that looks like, but the one that's at the 3 different middle schools, and this might be a future discussion, but kind of schedule of, are they at each 3 every day, or is that to be determined?
It really is based a little bit in part on what may be going on in that particular building at that time. Is there maybe a call for service? It's Officer Jones. She tries to, balance between the 3. I would say, sometimes one school will have things that draw more of her time in any given week than another, but we try to balance that out among the 3 middle schools.
Thank you. Ms. Bowers?
Yeah, I think this is an opportune moment to just recognize the incredible service that the SROs provide to the district. And certainly we're reminded of it last week with the threats that went across many districts across Ohio. And all the feedback that I heard from community members was how incredibly professional, how orderly, how safe our students remained even in that potential moment of fear and chaos. So a huge extension of gratitude, not just to the SROs, but to the entire GPD. I heard that students were, and I guess I also need to recognize certainly the staff at GLHS for their work in that, and of course the students themselves for being responsive to a potentially critical situation. So thank you all for that. It's not lost on me as well that we are continuing to hear about the strain on our public schools. And I recognize that, we are fiduciaries of the city's budget, and that is not the same as the school's budget, and I fully recognize that. But I also fully recognize that the strength of our entire community is certainly tethered to the strength of our school district. And I'll respect the school board, my colleagues, my counterparts on the school board, and that they didn't have any concerns with this. But I certainly hope that the school is able to continue to extend services, both across the district, and that and that they're able to continue. Just that they're able to continue services across the district. That's all. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, so on for consent next, the 16th. Is that good for everyone? All right, thank you. Next up, we have a couple items from Department of Finance. Director Burry, hello.
Good evening. First item is a request for supplemental appropriations. This is related to a grant that was received from OCJS for the body-worn camera maintenance service contract. So respectfully requesting supplemental appropriations in the amount of $90,000.
Any questions or discussion? All right, so that one would have first reading next week and then adoption on the 6th. Any preference for consent or regular? Are we good with consent? All right, excellent. Next item.
Next item is a then and now purchase. So under Ohio Revised Code, encumbrance date needs to come before invoice date. We are allowed to do then and now certifications. I'm allowed to do that up to $3,000 on my own. Once it passes the $3,000 mark, I need your approval to go ahead and make those then and now purchases. So this is a resolution for a then and now purchase for our stop loss insurance.
Excellent. Any questions, discussion? All right, consent for next week, good? Awesome, thank you very much. Next, we have Economic Development, Director Grotke.
Thank you. Good evening.
Good evening.
Council, before you is what I would characterize as three kind of cleanup items related to the new community authority that was formed in the Crescent last year. I'll give you the quick backstory. So within the revised code, there's a prescribed formulation for how the initial board of that new community authority is to be created. Everybody remembers what an NCA is? Okay. And so that's basically like a placeholder model until two things happen, or one of two things happen. One is that the thresholds are met within the other statutory model for the permanent board to be created, which is based on the number of residents, and there's a certain number of elections based on a, quote, portion and a formula. So that's one way. The other way is, unless we can come up with a better way, an alternative system. So council, what you did last year was basically took that alternative system, which was basically just to carry that placeholder board forward a year until there were residents that were living in the district. So that year has passed, and it's time for a reauthorization of that resolution. So that's the gist of what's in front of you, is reauthorizing the board structure legislation for the new community authority. So what this does is it's nearly identical to what you passed last year. There are three changes. The rest is the same in terms of the text of the resolution. Number one is that the terms of the board members were not defined by either council or the NCA board itself. So this sets out that they will begin on January 1st and end on December 31st of the year of which their term ends. So that is just some easy cleanup language. Number two takes that structure that exists now, which is 1 city representative, 3 citizen representatives appointed by you, and 3 developer representatives appointed by the developer. That's that temporary placeholder board that you extended. It makes that system permanent. So that's the alternative system that we're just going to make permanent in lieu of having elections with the residents. And I'll explain why that's the best course of action. First is, we have yet to meet the population threshold for that portion, for that proportion. So we would have to wait another year before we could even have elections because there's not enough people based on the formula that's laid out in the revised code. Okay, so that's one. Number two is probably more important. Having elections among a area of private residence can get tricky. Coordinating the election. Now, we're dealing with 1 apartment complex and 1 property manager, so it would be less tricky, but it still could be a little tricky. But then, like, the major reason would be it's possible that no resident would want to run for the board, and so then those seats would then be vacant. So what we have done here is carry that placeholder board structure to be permanent so that U7 will still have appointment power over those 3 citizen representatives, and we inserted a clause that says, with a preference for a resident from, or residents from the area. So in the event that a resident couldn't be identified, then you can fall back to your usual process of identifying a citizen from the city. So again, that's sort of a hedge against not being able to identify a resident from that relatively small compact area. So those are the 3 changes. It makes the board structure permanent, it defines the terms, and expresses your will to prioritize a resident from the area. And if not, then a citizen can be appointed according to your regular process. So hopefully that made sense. It gets a little technical sometimes. So are there questions about any of that?
Jamil,
Yeah.
I just want to say something. I'm sitting here laughing at myself. Director, thank you very, very much to go through the inaneness and the details of this. I'm laughing because this is exactly what Thomas Jefferson talked about the doldrums and dreariness of government work. And he himself was bored to tears. But appreciate
Hey, I think
somebody
this
like
is
you.
fun, so.
Yeah, well, I recognize that, and I deeply appreciate you for looking at this, verifying it, and going forth. So you have my 100% support, so thank you.
Thank you. He also talks about raking diamonds from the dung heap. Meaning, identifying good leaders from the population. So I wasn't sure if you were going, if I was the diamond or the dung
Well, if you
heap
want me
in
to go there.
in this scenario, but
So, thank you.
thank you.
The city attorney, I think you had some things to add, or? Yeah.
Yes, so I have been working with Jeff in the weeds on this one, so also very exciting for me. So I get where you're all coming from, but I'm a nerd for this stuff too. So I just want to point out, so I had an opportunity to work with Jeff to draft the resolution. And so I think that some of the concepts are all there, but the language is not exactly there. So I welcome feedback from council as far as what language is necessary. So whereas the administration, I believe, is talking about one appointee being a resident of the district.
Yeah, it would
in the
actually be
report.
up to 3.
Up to
right,
3.
Yeah.
So the language here just says that all of the appointees should be residents of the district unless council finds that there are no appropriate applicants residing in the district.
Yeah.
And so that could be either one, being a resident of the district, or all 3, depending on applicant interest and availability that is appropriate, right, to be fiscally responsible for the NCA service. And then the term limits, because we have some terms that are already kind of in existence and theoretically, potentially expiring here soon, the language in the draft resolution specifically says that basically it will expire on December 31st of the year after the appointment is made. And so in parens, in the resolution language, it specifies an example. So our previous appointments were made in March. They will then expire December 31st of the following year. But the intent is to move these forward with the rest of the council appointments to boards and commissions on January 2nd in the organizational meeting. And then that would run to December 31st of the following year. So that would be a full 2-year term, starting in January, ending in December. But to account for our mid-year appointments when we first created the NCA is why I drafted the language in this way. So I just wanted to clarify those points.
Thank you for that clarification. Any additional questions, discussion? Appreciation for everyone being,
Yeah, I'm sorry. So I understand that NCAs are fairly new entities in the state.
Yes.
Have we seen this type of amendment to the appointment of members in other communities with NCAs?
Yeah, I can speak to that. The election system that's in the revised code is the anomaly. Most NCAs create an alternative election system. Yeah, and it was advice of the NCA council to do it this way for the reasons that I outlined.
That's correct. Sorry.
So it's not just Jeff making stuff up. Like there's an actual smart lawyer, 2 actual smart lawyers working on this.
That's correct. So we've been working in conjunction with the NCA council, and I do have a tentative call scheduled with her tomorrow as well to follow up. But it is my understanding that most communities utilize an appointment mechanism. The question that remains outstanding is how many communities are imposing a district residency requirement. And so that I'm going to flesh out with NCA council tomorrow. But obviously, we would defer to council's approval of what selection method is appropriate and the residency requirement. But that would be in the spirit of the statute to have a district residency intention.
And at some point in the future, should, for example, district residents petition a future council to resolve, to go back to the ORC's process with an election, I would anticipate that some future council could also adopt a resolution reverting back to the ORC's model of elective process.
Yes, that's correct. At any time, council can amend this resolution. The reason that this is being brought forth is because there was a sunset provision last year.
Yeah,
So,
right.
because of that sunset provision is why this is being brought forward, but this does not include a sunset provision. So this would continue unless changed by a future council.
Thank you. And apologies to Mr. Renner for.
I think Director Gotke is a diamond in this dung heap. No, in all seriousness, so I just want to express my gratitude as well to Director Gotke, City Attorney Tamala. I would reiterate the strong preference that decisions for the district, but certainly recognize that that might not be feasible in all instances, but that would be my strong preference moving forward. I believe the language is, from what is reflective of that. As a clarifying matter, is the city attorney indicating that we would need a red line amendment for next week?
No, I think we're all aligned. I just
Okay.
wanted to clarify what the language said.
Okay, thank you for that. And thank you very much. I appreciate the jewelry hunt. I
Yeah,
guess,
well,
or the
and
jewel hunt.
we shouldn't forget your very detail-oriented clerk who caught that March 17th was the sunset of this provision, so
Thank you for recognizing Clerk
let's
Van
not,
Meter.
let's not forget the
yes.
diamond to my left over here either.
I appreciate Mr. Van Meter very much, so thank you all.
Ms. Bowers?
Is it worth, based on the strong preference, and I had the same reaction to this, that the appointees are residents of the district, would there be some potential way to bake in solicitation to that community through their property manager or through the,
Yeah, thank you. So,
Thank you.
if I may piggyback on this, so
Yeah.
this is actually a conversation Director Gahanna and I had, and so thank you for coming up. I was going to be like, oh, Director Gahanna, if you could, please.
Sure, I communicate with the property manager there semi-regularly, and she's very responsive, so, and had some ideas of some people who might be willing to serve already, so.
and I appreciate that. I'm just wondering if there's a way, and perhaps I'll look to Clerk Van Meter, not to put him on the spot right now, but as we move this resolution forward, would there be something we could do to signal or require outreach to a property manager, or posting or email circulation or inserts into their, rents, rental invoices or things like that? I'm just kind of thinking out loud about ways that we can bake in this strong preference by ensuring that we're actually talking to the people who live there.
Yeah, I guess my first thought would be we can add this to our onboarding system in terms of accepting applications. Second would be a public notice that council is, looking for applicants within the Gahanna NCA, specifically in the Crescent District. I could forward that notice along to Director Gahanna. He could share it with his counterparts there at the Crescent.
Okay. Do you recommend that we incorporate that anywhere in the resolution to signal to future bodies that would be a way to communicate, or just emphasize communication to residents of the district?
I think emphasizing the communication would be
Okay.
fine, yeah.
Excellent.
It's pretty standard with what we would do with other boards and commissions.
Right.
That's not necessarily mandated within, those codes or
Right.
governing documents, but
Right.
I would defer to council, of course, as to your preference, but.
Do you have like internal processes or SOP on those appointments? So could that be something that gets inserted into your internal document?
That's the onboarding
Okay.
system that Mr. Van Meter was referencing.
Okay.
Yes.
So that's an indicator to future councils, hey, don't forget to reach out.
It could be, but certainly if we had some, parenthetical or comma clause inserted somewhere in the resolution, it could be useful.
My initial thought is just that it is stated as a shall statement that these appointees shall be residents of the district unless.
Okay.
And so I think whenever we do postings for boards and commissions, we indicate what the scope of that appointment is and who we're looking for. And so I think it's already in there that is the requirement, and then there's an exception if not.
All right, well, we had a discussion on the record, so hopefully when this comes up in 10 years from now, and there's a population of 700 to choose from, they'll be able to say, hey, that's
This
city
just got
council.
nerdier because now we're defining shall.
That's right.
All right, any further questions or discussion? Okay, then we'll have this on consent for next week, the 16th.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, so next we have a couple items from council. We're going to start with the procurement code discussion, which is returning at the request of Mrs. Bowers. So I will turn it over to you first.
Great, thank you so much. Thanks to my colleagues and to the administration, I had requested to bring this discussion back up again to discuss adjusting contract authorization threshold for expenditures that fall outside the competitive bidding requirements established by the Ohio Revised Code. So I just wanted to start off by level setting and reviewing some of the existing conditions, and I know that Director Burry will check me if I get anything wrong tonight. So Currently, contracts that don't require competitive bidding and that are below $250,000 may be executed administratively without separate council approval unless a supplemental appropriation is required. And based on research of neighboring communities, that threshold is significantly higher than what we've seen in most peer communities, municipalities here in Central Ohio. Legislative review often occurs at levels closer to $50,000 to $75,000. I also wanted to just remind folks and level set that it's important to recognize that our current policy was established relatively recently in early 2022 when the code first codified a formal contract authorization threshold, with much respect and recognition of Director Burry for addressing this following audit recommendations. At that time, policy was informed in part by federal procurement guidance, and as noted by Councilman Renner earlier on in this discussion, by the need to move COVID relief funding efficiently. So those circumstances perhaps understandably led to a higher threshold than what's typically seen in municipal governance. However, as we've moved beyond that moment and returned to more typical operating conditions, it's appropriate to revisit whether that threshold continues to reflect best practices for a city of our size. In addition to reviewing regional practices, we've also been provided with a list of professional service purchase orders opened from 2022 through year end of 2025. Professional services purchase orders opened by the administration over the last 4 years total approximately $14.5 million in aggregate. What I observed from the list of purchase orders is that there's a fairly clear functional distinction in how anticipated contracts tend to fall. Contracts roughly above $90,000 tend to relate to larger capital initiatives, strategic projects, or significant policy initiatives. And while there are certainly strategic projects and policy initiatives related to purchase orders, related to those items that fall below $90,000, many more of those that are in that smaller category are generally administrative or ministerial in nature. Routine services, ongoing operational needs, or smaller professional contracts. Based on both the regional comparison and that empirical review, I think it's appropriate that we consider a $100,000 threshold for contracts requiring council authorization. The $100,000 threshold would preserve administrative flexibility for routine operational matters while ensuring that larger strategic expenditures receive council review and discussion in a public forum. Recognizing that there was also a discussion at our prior committee of the whole meeting of potential regular reporting structure, I'm also looking forward to hearing from the administration. In my view, we have the opportunity to lead the way in transparency, stewardship, and cooperation by advancing not a binary either-or solution, but a holistic solution. Whether reporting out or seeking approval or both, this is not about slowing down projects or questioning the work of the administration. Rather, it's about strengthening transparency and ensuring that council can fully carry out our role in the stewardship of public funds. Council's responsibility is not only to appropriate funds in the budget, but also to provide oversight of how those funds are ultimately used. Adjusting this threshold helps ensure that significant expenditures receive appropriate public discussion and allows council and the administration to engage in constructive dialogue before contracts are finalized. Good governance works best when each branch of government is able to fully carry out its role. The administration executing the work of the city, and council providing transparent oversight of how public funds are committed. Ultimately, this proposal and this discussion is about aligning Gahanna's practices more closely with regional norms and reinforcing the transparency and accountability that residents expect when significant public dollars are committed. I appreciate the opportunity to provide an overview of where we are, and I certainly look forward to hearing from the administration this evening. Thank you.
Thank you. And I'll turn it over to the administration.
Corey, just a second. Thank you very much for that recitation, Councilwoman Bowers. I appreciate that. And Councilwoman Jones, thank you as well, because you had indicated this would be an open dialogue based on the conversations that we had. So we were told no presentation, but we wanted to have some slides in order to reflect some of the comments we'll share tonight. I do appreciate that we have an opportunity here to lead the way. I believe that we are leading the way. The procurement policy that is currently in place was passed 4 years ago, March of 2022, where the threshold was set at 250,000, as we all know. We had extensive conversations at that time as to why that is, or why we were seeking that at the time. In the last 4 years, we've had no issues. We've had glowing audits. We've had extensive reporting back to council and continue to build out what that reporting looks like, and we will continue to do that as well. And I believe that was a unanimous vote. I believe Councilwoman Bowers, you were the one who made that motion to adopt that procurement policy change that we had back then. I do believe we have endeavored, certainly my administration over the last 6 years, has made many changes in pursuit of ensuring that we are following best governance practices. And we continue to do that in everything that we evaluate every day. And since the conversation that we've been having here in these chambers around the procurement policy, I've had the opportunity to sit with my team and to go back and review what we've done, what the policy how the policy has been working for us, to consider council's comments as well and take those into consideration. I do want to clarify the reference to the POs that were provided, as was shared the last 2 weeks ago when Director Burry shared the list of POs. That does not reflect dollars spent. That reflects dollars that were appropriated. And when the budget is passed, we open POs based on the dollars that are appropriated. A lot of times at the end of the year, we return money back. So I just want to clarify that for anybody who might be listening. That $4 million number you threw out doesn't mean we spent that much. That was just what POs were open based on what was appropriated. But in any event, at this point, Director Weibensinger, I will turn this over to you to provide comments on behalf of the administration. We have listened to council's comments. Again, I understand the need, well, not the need, the request that has been made to revisit the threshold policy. I always say I can't solve a problem if I don't know what the problem is. So what I've heard so far, and the only thing that I've heard thus far, is we have to follow best governance practices and we should align with other municipalities in the region. So with that in mind, we have given some consideration and some thought to, and have some thoughts as well in terms of the future direction of the policy.
Thank you, Mayor. So I have a few things right now. I'll ad-lib a little bit here based on the mayor's introduction comments here, but it is the administration opinion that the procurement thresholds that we've had established since March of 22, they do work, they have worked for operational effectiveness and efficiency in the city. These thresholds do allow us to be faster in response to needs, lower our transaction costs, and allow for easier vendor participation in those small to moderate range projects. In essence, we've made it so vendors want to work with Gahanna. When I got here 4 years ago, that was one of the hurdles I had, was to try to change some of that, that culture of getting vendors to want to bid on projects. We've done all this while reducing administrative burden, maintaining compliance and oversight. There has been good discussion across the dais over the last month, and we have a better understanding of council's thoughts. I have personally sat with Director Burry numerous times since this agenda item was presented, and we've discussed a variety of items, from the transactional data, policy compliance, procedural oversight. We've met with Director Schultz, Director Vollmer, the mayor. We continue to build our decision-making on our Gahanna strategic plan. We want to ensure that we're listening and responding to the community. I always have that in the back of my mind as we continue to move forward. In the plan, you have Goal 2, A16, that we need to make sure that our procurement processes and financial practices are streamlined. This is important to our staff, that they understand how they can execute quickly, they understand the rules and procedures so they make sense, and that we don't convolute them. We also want to make sure that works for our vendors that want to do business with us, that it's easy to do business with Gahanna. All the while, we do need to ensure our compliance and our understanding of that process. Now, that being said, as you can see on the screen here, we do come forward today as part of this continued discussion with recommended adjustments to the thresholds within the procurement ordinance. We would recommend maintaining the micro purchase threshold of the 10,000 limit, no modification to that. We would recommend modifying the small purchase threshold to the $149,999 limit. This would bring this threshold closer to what was presented for Upper Arlington, which if I had to anticipate, others will be moving closer to that threshold as the cost of doing business continues to rise. Even with this threshold, this would still require multiple quotes to be obtained for competitive procurement. That is not a change from what we have for the current small purchase threshold. There are competitive quotes that are received for that. What this would do would be to remove the Ohio Revised Code 735 language that it ties to the construction, which is that $79,000 threshold that adjusts, I believe it's 3% annually. But it would still be bound by the $150,000 cap. Lastly, we'd recommend the third threshold that would be called a competitive solicitation threshold, essentially merging the language between competitive proposals and sealed bids into a streamlined threshold that anything over $150,000, regardless of purchase type, if it was professional services, equipment, projects, would need to proceed authorization for the mayor to enter into that agreement. That would be a great way for us to continue to streamline our procurement process here and make it easier for people to understand what needs to come forward, what doesn't need to come forward, and still allow us to operate with some expediency in some of these purchases. As you all know, we are required frequently to respond quickly to things here at the city. And oftentimes, if we add additional procurement procedures, the benefit of compliance doesn't necessarily bubble up. We do have good compliance. We will continue to have good compliance, but we still would like to have that ability to have some expediency in how we react to things. That's what I have today.
Thank you. Questions? Mr. Renner?
So thank you very much for introducing that and your recommendations. So I have a couple of questions. One is, and maybe you already said that, Corey, is this 150 commiserate with any other municipality in central Ohio?
That's tying it to the Upper Arlington example that was provided.
Yeah,
And
you
as
did
we've
say
been
that.
able to tell,
Okay.
others are reaching that 100,000 and moving
Right.
up as well.
Right. My only other comment with this is that I applaud you for thinking about the internal processes. I applaud you for thinking about the vendors and ease of getting the money out there, because that's why we do this, right? We have projects and we need vendors to be able to apply in a very open process and actually award those. The other dimension to this, and even the mention of audit, all of those are government processes that I think we all really understand and champion. But one of the things that I was talking about before is, what is the value to the community, to Jane and John Doe out there when they're looking in? And what I'm looking for, and I think you provided it, is more information readily available for Jane and John Doe. And what as long as I've done this job, I have been astonished by the sheer number of people that look at our council agendas just by simply doing that. And they're looking for one thing. They're looking for status on projects. They're looking for understanding, what is it, when's this coming to my park? When's this sewer coming? And believe me, I'm getting phone calls about that. When is this sewer coming to my community? And so I value lowering this threshold simply because of that. If that is actually puts more, I understand that it puts more work on City Hall, but it actually translates into more information out the door on the agenda. People can actually see this. And so I'm reasonably certain, and I like to hear from my colleagues, but going from 250 to 150, okay. And it seems like you're talking about a process internally that meets the muster. Then we can put it on the agenda and we can keep talking about these projects. And I have, my mind sometimes goes too fast. The other problem, and I owe Director Schultz a phone call, because when are we going to have another CIP meeting? Because it's actually coming up, and this dovetails with all these projects and people needing to know status. And so by looking at our agenda, they can get a readily idea about, oh, this is coming up. The design is coming up. Construction is coming up, that kind of thing. So it's really about, I'm giving you feedback, I appreciate, and I think I'm ready to buy into this. So thank you.
Can I respond real quick?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
So my only hesitation or concern would be utilizing the procurement thresholds for that communication piece, because when we hit that threshold, it changes the direction that we're going with the work. And if we do a formalized competitive process, we're adding weeks to a project to go through that process. But the value of going through that process isn't going to be greater than if we do it at a different mechanism to get to the same result. The piece that it would be bringing forward the awareness piece, but my concern would be utilizing the flow of the work and the process and slowing it to accomplish that. And that would be my hesitation, because it would slow it down. If the more we bring forward, the more we have to do, if we have to do the formalized procurement versus just a competitive process, adds weeks to the process as well. And that would be my concern, is we are trying to be responsive and as fast as we can to things, because it already is slow. Everybody can admit government is slow. We try not to be, but we do have a lot of hoops to jump through. And my concern would be utilizing this to add more hoops that I'm not sure that there would necessarily be that value, that there would be a different mechanism to trigger that, to the awareness piece.
Thank you for saying that. I actually sit on the side of, I'm adamant about that piece. Government is supposed to be slow because it's the consensus of the people. It's actually informing. That's its number one job, is actually informing. So I understand your concern, but but it's your recommendation, and so I'm ready to go forward.
Madam Chair, if I might. Councilman, I appreciate your comments. I truly do, and I know that your philosophy, we share that philosophy with regard to how we communicate with our residents and emphasizing and prioritizing accountability, transparency, and all that we do. In listening to some of the comments and Director Weibensinger's responses, I don't know that bringing more matters on the agenda necessarily solves the issue that you're talking about, right? When's my street going to get paved? When's that sewer project going to get done? And sometimes I think it adds to the controversy, for lack of a better word, because we present a contract, but then it's months before actual work ever begins, because you have to go through so many things, just selecting the vendor to the time when the project actually begins. So sometimes it creates false expectations as to when residents think a project's going to begin, because they've seen a conversation happen here, right? Even the annexation discussion we had at the beginning of tonight's council meeting, the annexation is one step out of 10 that would have to come before a project would ever come to fruition here in the city. But people don't always understand those processes. So I do think that there is a happy medium to be had. Understanding I think the pros that Director Weibensinger talked about earlier, again, costs are continuing to rise, so that threshold is going to give us a little bit more flexibility as those costs continue to rise, and the ability to lock in a price. But lowering the threshold to be more consistent with maybe what council's looking for, and then building in those added reporting mechanisms that we've talked about, specifically as we roll out our Gahanna and the strategic plan and the implementation of that, and building more reporting into that implementation and how that gets reported back to council. I think there is a compromise to be had, and I think that this is a good solution. I believe it addresses council's comments as well as considers some of the things that Director Weibensinger talked about.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Ms. Bowers? Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. And thank you to the administration for bringing forward a suggestion. A couple of impressions I think that I want to just make sure that we're all on the same page with. So by eliminating the ORC bid requirement and setting instead the small purchase recommendation up to $149,999, that is almost doubling the competitive bid requirement under ORC for contracts that would have fallen under ORC requirements. So I want to make sure that that is very clear, because that's going to reduce the number of contracts that actually come, or requests for bid that would come before council. So that would eliminate potentially opportunity there. Why not? Why not?
Because most of those construction contracts with today's cost are well in excess of $150,000. So when if you think back and you look at legislation for what we've brought forward under that competitive bidding, it's all been well over $150,000.
I thought I recalled one item that Mr. Schultz brought forward to us that was in that under $100,000 realm recently. Is that not, did you not bring forward a request for bid item to us that was well under 100? Okay.
I think you're probably talking about a tangible good that we purchased, which is technically different. It wouldn't have fallen. It wasn't a bid item. I think that the only thing that springs to mind right now as we're sitting here, as it relates to the, 78,000 versus the 150. I know we did light pole painting last year, and it came in higher than the bid threshold, so we're technically required to bid. We didn't get any good bids on that particular attempt, so we actually reduced it to below the bid threshold of I think at the time $75,000, so that we could actually paint poles and just get 3 quotes. I think this does a couple of different things. I think it actually gives us the ability to actually receive and actually perform work. Another example I'll give you, which technically wouldn't fall under a particular bid amount, but we require some traffic signal work down here at Morrison and Hamilton Road, and that's $188,000 worth of work that needs done. We've already have a bid on that, so we have the ability to perform that work. But just an example of, to Ms. Berry's point, that a lot of these things come in well over the $150,000 mark, unless it's a relatively a much smaller type item.
And in fairness, I don't think that we had a heads up that you were going to suggest bringing down, or excuse me, raising the competitive bid threshold for small purchases, or that would qualify outside of small purchases. So I have not had a chance to go back and look at our approvals for request to bid. So I don't know where we fall within that. But going back then to the 150,000 versus 100,000 threshold, and in terms of kind of slowing things down and extra work to the administration to bring things forward to us. So in the last 4 years, there were 31 purchase orders for over 100,000, and I just have to work with purchase orders because that's what we were given as opposed to true expenditures. So 31 purchase orders for over $100,000 over a 4-year period. That's about 7 or 8 per year. And based on the recommendations from the city attorney that we recently adopted into our rules of council procedure, these would be able to be completed by resolution, requiring only 1 reading. So it would not have a significant time impact, as far as I can tell, based on the resolution process and on the volume of potential contracts that would be over 100,000. With that, I want to reiterate my gratitude for the reflection on the conversation, and I'm not opposed to raising the threshold for the competitive bid process to be higher than what's in ORC. I think that is probably appropriate. I'm not sure 150,000 is the right number, but I would be supportive of also raising that to 100.
Thank you.
Okay.
Other questions? Fully transparent, we're throwing out a lot of numbers and things, and well, first, thank you for having conversation and coming back with a proposal. I really appreciate that. Knowing that we, don't have to vote on it or anything next week, can I ask for like a TBD of this? Like, if we do this, how does this change? And maybe with some different colors so we can clearly see just today versus what future could be?
Sure.
That would be helpful, a visual of how things could change based on what you are recommending. Yeah, a visual would just be helpful, because I'm having a hard time just navigating through what then we will see, what we won't, what's easier. I do understand the conversation that we're having about, reporting to us, reporting to residents, making sure that they're aware of things. I do feel like those are 2 different conversations, though, like how we keep residents informed versus how we're approving. And so I don't know how we continue to navigate this discussion. And I'm sorry, you can disagree. I'm not saying that we don't inform residents, but right now we're talking about a policy that I don't know that residents are going into the weeds of what the policy is. So how do we talk about what we need in the policy, and then how do we keep the residents informed? That is my vote, my preference. I feel like we're muddying, right now, for me, the conversations are getting muddy, and I think I would appreciate maybe having them in the different conversations. Not saying that they have to happen at different times or one's more important than the other, but I think we're trying to go after 2 purposes with 1 conversation, is what it feels like to me. Maybe seeing this out differently will make me think different, but right now, I feel like we're having 2 conversations with 1 solution. That's where I am.
So if I could just real quick, right, I would remind us all here that we did talk about the reporting mechanism that would be to come through the strategic plan process, and understanding what that report looks like and so on and so forth, right? So I think I honestly think we're probably all saying something very, very, very similar to one another. I think the difference between us and Ms. Bauer's proposal is the bid threshold going up, and then 150 versus 100. I think Mr. Renner's right in the standpoint of the more items that we, speak across the dais and then seek approval on, I think does inform the resident in part. And then to your second point there, what are the other mechanisms, right? Because we all know, and we kind of had this conversation during the quarterly report or the year-end report, whichever it was last week, a lot of what we're talking about here are projects, and projects are difficult, right? Projects take time to do and time to execute. So we could, to the mayor's point, execute a contract tomorrow on a particular item and it not necessarily get underway in earnest to any visibility that the resident might have for, a year or 2 or even, potentially even longer, right? Only because of the design timeline and the complicatedness of which some of the projects we execute take. So that doesn't change the reporting mechanism. I think the reporting mechanism would assist in, I'll spare the commentary on what a report could look like, because we haven't even started that conversation on this side of the table yet, but we do know that it's coming and will be presented to you folks at a point in time.
Thank you. Mr. Weaver?
Thank you, Chair. First, thank you all very much, and I appreciate you coming forward with a recommendation. I know there's been a lot of dialogue over the last several weeks, and the fact that you were able to cobble a recommendation together, I don't want to say cobble, that's not the right word, but the fact that you were able
Thoughtfully
to.
created.
Yes. Seize onto our commentary and our feedback that I know at times was amorphous and come up with something is very much so appreciated. I have a couple of clarifying items. So I believe, Director Weibensinger, you alluded to this in your opening comments, but that third bucket, as currently listed up there under the sealed bid competitive proposal recommendation, change to competitive solicitation for all items over 150. It sounded like you were, in your comments, alluding to a change in, or maybe simplifying the actual bid process for those items, or are they still going to be under separate sealed versus RFP? It sounds like it was being, okay, I see Director Burry nodding, but could you clarify a little bit what that would look like?
The intent, again, is for the ordinance to be streamlined, to be better, to understand better what the process is to go forward under the competitive solicitation. Now, the competitive solicitation, there are options that you can do proposals versus bids. What is the most appropriate for the procurement mechanism that we need to do? We are not bound by a proposal versus an invitation to bid. But what would be in the best interest of the city to do so under that section? They would follow the exact rules. Bids would have different caveats than proposals, right? The example that Director Schultz had mentioned would be like the streetlight pole painting, that we continue to struggle to get vendors for the $150,000 construction budget to do the bidding process because it is cumbersome. There are a lot of requirements for them to do. They won't do it, but they will turn in a proposal which accomplishes nearly the same thing, just a different format, for us to be able to go through proposals and be able to solicit that amount and not have to reduce below the $79,000, and we're only getting half the work done that we want to get done because we cannot find people, in that example, that will actually go through the bidding process.
So I think that's a really helpful illustration, and I really appreciate that, because when I make a purchase, so my day job is with the county, as many folks know. I know Mr. Renner is also with the county. Buying things can be tricky, and they can be cumbersome and onerous on the potential bidder, or the potential vendor, I should say, is probably the more appropriate term. And that context, depending on the project, sure, that where that potential project might be can be limiting to potential vendors. And if the goal, I would think, for many of us, is to keep the tax dollars that we are required to expend for various projects into perhaps our own community's businesses, that may not be the biggest corporation out there doing the bidding, having a little bit of that flexibility, I think, is important. And so I think I am appreciative of that small purchase recommendation to give the administration that flexibility, which might help some smaller vendors be able to take advantage, that's probably not the right word, to be able to compete against some of these larger corporations. And I do think that is important, perhaps even our small and minority and women-owned businesses as well. Sorry, yes.
I was gonna, so I've sat at the table representing the city of Gahanna and Franklin County previously with small, emerging minority business, women-owned business. And that often is a struggle, is if it is a small business, they do not, frequently, they don't have the staff and the ability to go through a full-out competitive procurement process. They do have the time to create quotes or proposals in order to respond to events. So oftentimes, we do create some of these barriers that do restrict some of those smaller businesses from being able to go after because of the process in itself. Now, that's not for everybody, but there are frequent times where I've sat across, people want to know how to do business with the city of Gahanna, and we do have some of these, especially on the construction side. We do have a lot of, I call them small mom and pop, HVAC electricians or things like that, where in their world, $100,000 to $150,000 contract is life-changing. For us, it's a bit on a larger contract. And so being able to have some of that flexibility to work with them could be crucial, yeah.
And thank you for that. So let me ask this as a clarifier. Are we able to, and I know the reporting conversation is maybe a next step, but do we currently track our small, who would qualify as a small or minority-owned business that, okay. Would we be able to track minority-owned?
It would have to be part of a revised procurement process. Our policy, I don't know if it's in the ordinance or our manual, is we encourage the utilization of, which mirrors federal language.
Okay.
But like at the county, I know they would track and you would report quarterly that data. Often if the vendor would provide that data, because sometimes they would not. But
Sure.
we do not have that as part of our reporting mechanism.
Sure. I think, correct me if I'm wrong, Mr. Renner, is it a voluntary disclosure form with the county for vendors when they submit ultimately the contract?
Are you talking about small emerging?
Just
business?
yeah, that, or if they're a minority-owned business or a woman-owned business?
It is a voluntary process, but they should be registered also with the State Department of Commerce.
Thank you, sir. Okay.
And just as a real quick to that, we do have a formal vendor packet that goes out, and we could absolutely add that as an optional field for them to put in. And we do have areas within our accounting system that could be identified as such if that's a direction that we could update our vendor packet for an optional reporting by those that are turning in their information.
I think more information is good, and if that is a goal of the bid process or in the, I can't remember exactly how you phrased it, but it's listed as a goal in the policy or encouraging, that, yeah, then being able to report that or track in some way would be good.
I guess we certainly don't want our policies to be a hindrance.
Yeah.
Whether they is a goal to achieve, we certainly don't want it to be a hindrance to achieve.
And thank you, and I apologize, I wasn't trying to go too far down that road. It was more in the context of ensuring that the thresholds are not prohibitive of maybe our smaller vendors from being able to compete for projects if they can or if they're interested. So that leads me to my second comment. There was an analysis provided, and thank you very much, Director Burry. How complex is that for you to run that report that was provided? That had the, I think it was the 10K to 250K purchases from the past several years. So, thank you. So I appreciate the conversation about strategic plan and reporting, and I think that's a great goal. But that sort of reporting, I think, would be very helpful to me in just moving forward. And I don't know if a quarterly finance report is the great place to do it. I don't know. I'm open to that. But I think whatever the threshold dollar amounts may be moving forward, that analysis gets me like 90% of the way to being happy about this. I found that very helpful. And I know that we started on the threshold dollar amounts anyway, and so I'm circling back. I apologize, I'm long-winded here. I appreciate the willingness of the administration to bring that threshold to 150,000. Looking at those purchases and just seeing where I think the trend is with some of the peer communities, also some of the trends in the purchases. I know as a county employee that 3% increase every year helps us with that threshold. I do wonder if maybe if that 100,000 might be, the 99,999, and then 100,000 and above would be more appropriate, just given some of the dollar amounts of those purchases and some of the other comments from my colleagues, and still raising that 79,568 to that $100,000. And I think that is where I am at the moment. And I appreciate everyone's time and listening to my long-winded comments.
Thank you. Other questions? Discussion? Questions or discussion on, yeah.
Mr. Renner, maybe?
I don't have any further questions, but I just want to say for the record two different things. One, the point about two different discussions I think is rather dim, because procurement is probably one of the most powerful things that government does. And so it is reporting to the people. I'm struggling to actually really see what would be higher in that. This is why a revised code spends an enormous amount of sections and detailed language about it. The other thing is my comments have been probably poor in the sense that they're not prefaced with enough market data. And I did bring this up before, that I do believe firmly that the legislature, when they passed the last iteration, were using very old market data and not reflective of their current conditions. And so while I understand, while backwards look at some of the POs might be indicative of certain behaviors, I just want to caution that really we need to actually grapple with understanding the realities of market conditions. And I think some of the things that Councilman Weaver and Corey were definitely talking about is labor costs. Those, in fact, have actually skyrocketed over the last several years. And so getting a small contract, is becoming a small set of services is actually becoming very problematic underneath underneath the 150,000 barrier. And it's increasingly becoming more difficult. And when you look at and you ask vendors to actually, well, give me a schema of what are the costs, the number one is labor, not materials and services. And so I think that's actually, and to the point that the small emerging businesses, women-owned, and minority businesses are very clearly disadvantaged for all the items that Senior Director Weibensinger actually said. So that is why I'm more comfortable with the 150 threshold, because of all those things. So I just wanted to state that for the record.
Anything else on this item? So I think there have been a couple, I've requested an update to the decision tree. This will continue to be something on the agenda for us to discuss as we get toward a resolution. I guess from the administration, any questions or anything on your behalf to clarify maybe what we are looking for or request from us? Okay.
Just the decision tree is, do we have a time frame for that, or is that just before the next time?
Yeah, I think just next committee would be helpful, since it's just going to be a standing item. Thank you. Appreciate it again for you all coming forward again with a recommendation, and for, I think, as Mr. Weaver said, sort of piecing together everything, so we appreciate it. All right, next item on the agenda is our honorary resolutions discussion. So as we talked about earlier, part of the year, we were going to just take a look at what we did the previous year to look ahead at what we would want to do this year. So attached, or as part of the text on Legislar, you'll see what we did for Q2 last year. Wanted to just open a discussion or preferences on if we will continue to do the same for Q2 of this year. I will raise that I am interested in doing Juneteenth again, but would open discussion on that and any of the other ones from both council and mayor, as it looks like many of those were joint last year. Yes.
Yeah, thank you. You probably are going to be shocked that I would actually like to take on the Earth Day resolution. I did reach out to the mayor and right before council, and this year's theme on Earth Day is Our Power, Our Planet, and I'm going to talk about this more, but it actually emphasizes the strength of collective action, community involvement, and the power of individuals to drive environmental progress. And I'd like to actually, our normal resolutions are always about recognizing Earth Day, or it's taking a retrospective, approach. I'm thinking that the Earth Day resolution this year is going to be forward. In other words, it's building the partners throughout the community. It's an opportunity for us to call to action, and it could be anything of, hey, we're asking the churches or the educators or the community at large, do one thing. Plant a tree, do a rain garden, and the list can go on, right? We have several different low-hanging fruit that we could probably work on with the administration on that, because we know we have litter cleanup days and everything else under the sun, recycling days and all that kind of stuff. And so I'm wondering if there's an opportunity to do what's really here, back to maybe a little bit about the power of government. Government can't solve this, and that's central to Ohio University's Voinovich leadership and public service philosophy. It's going to take all of us. And so maybe there's an opportunity here for us to actually look at doing something forward, and then reporting at the end by the next Earth Day. So,
Thank you. Chair, Madam Chair.
Yes.
I would like to bring forward a resolution to recognize Mental Health Awareness Month for May. I know that periodically we've recognized Maternal Mental Health Day and and some other recognitions around that. But given the resources and the attention the special attention that I think our community puts into mental health, I think it would be appropriate for us to recognize that as our Awareness Month in May. So would welcome the mayor to join in that proclamation if she's.
Well, I actually have been doing that, so I welcome you to join me if we could do that, if council has an interest in that as well. I'll be happy to extend that and make that a broader recognition.
Excellent, thank you. Others? Herb Week, I would assume will stay on the list?
Yes, I have been working with Jeremy on that. Herb Day is the first Saturday in May. So it would actually fall, we would want to do it on the first meeting at 8:25. And I believe that Jeremy has also reached out to Tom Gregory to see if he has another presentation on the Herb Ladies. So keep getting some little mini history lessons, learning more about Gahanna. And I thought that it would be fitting being at the new location, kind of honoring our past a little bit.
Excellent, thank you. Yeah.
Thank you, Chair. I think the list for Q2 looks, these are all laudable, great causes and recognitions, and I would be happy to see them all move forward. And might.
ALS, I think, was like a special recognition. I wouldn't necessarily think we need to bring that one back again.
Okay.
But, I mean, of course,
Yep.
it's worthy of our recognition, but not necessarily.
Sure, and there are, and that's sort of where my comments were.
Sorry.
No, you're fine. Like, for example, we have things come up throughout the calendar year that with specific incidences or occasions or achievements from our talented community members that we want to recognize that aren't maybe an annual recognition that may still pop up. I could say there's one that I just learned, became aware of a young individual in our community who's done great work, and I will say more once I've had the opportunity to reach out to the individual, but that's something that I'd like to bring forward. But I guess I would just say if folks are interested in, if without objection, if folks would reach out to the clerk to coordinate with Clerk Van Meter to maybe lead one of these, and certainly reach out to the administration if the administration wants to join in on any of these. And the mayor just offered an opportunity to join her as well. So I think that would be my recommendation. So.
Excellent, thank you. And again, the point of having the discussion wasn't to say that this is exhaustive, and if we don't talk about it now, we can't do it. I think it was an attempt to get ahead of the game, because oftentimes we were rushing. So appreciate just a look at the list, and we'll see how we move forward from there. Last item on the list from City Attorney.
Thank you. Before you is a resolution to authorize me to enter the city into the 6 remnant defendants settlement. So this is named as such because there are 6 companies remaining that have been identified as being part of the National Opioid Settlement Agreements. And so consistent with previous resolutions, I am requesting permission for the city to enter into this and obtain those funds as they are paid out.
Any questions or discussion? All right, then we'll have this on consent for next week, the 16th. If there be no other items, questions, or discussions, we are adjourned. Thank you, everyone, for the discussion this evening.